Hare Krishna everyone, we're continuing to read The Science of Self-Realization, the book by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 6, Finding Spiritual Solutions to Material Problems, and this section is entitled The Tiny World of Modern Science. Introduction. In April 1973, during a long morning walk at Venice Beach in Los Angeles, Srila Prabhupada turned to the subject of modern science and scientists. With philosophical rigor, profound common sense, and disarming frankness, he exposed the narrow-mindedness and illogic behind the scientists' commonly accepted theories about the origin of life. The students on hand included Dr. Thodam Singh, an organic chemist, who captured the dialogue on tape. Srila Prabhupada. The whole world of science and technology is running on the false idea that life is born from matter. We cannot allow this nonsensical theory to go unchallenged. Life does not come from matter. Matter is generated from life. This is not theory, it is a fact. Science is based on an incorrect theory, therefore all its calculations and conclusions are wrong, and people are suffering because of this. When all these mistaken modern scientific theories are corrected, people will become happy. So we must challenge the scientists and defeat them. Otherwise, they will mislead the entire society. Matter changes in 6 phases: birth, growth, maintenance, production of byproducts, dwindling, and death. But the life within matter, the spirit soul, is eternal. It goes through no such changes. Life appears to be developing and decaying, but actually it is simply passing through each of these 6 phases until the material body can no longer be maintained. Then the old body dies and the soul enters a new body. When our clothing is old and worn, we change it. Similarly, one day our bodies become old and useless, and we pass on to a new body. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 2.13, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara prapti. Quote, as the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. Unquote. And a little later, 2.18, Antavanta ime deha nitya syokta sharirina. This means that only the material body of the indestructible and eternal entity is subject to destruction. This material body is perishable, but the life within the body is nitya, eternal. According to the Vedas, the measurement of the soul within the body is 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair. 1/10,000th. This is very small. In fact, it is atomic. Yet, because of that atomic spiritual energy, my body is working. Is it so difficult to understand? Suppose a man thinks himself very stout and strong. Why is he stout and strong? Only because within his body is a small spiritual spark. But as soon as the spiritual spark is gone, his body dies, and his strength and vigor become void. If scientists say that matter is the cause and origin of life, then let them bring just one dead man back to life by injecting him with chemicals. But this they cannot do. Dr. Singh: since scientists cannot see the spirit soul, they say its existence is very doubtful. Srila Prabhupada: how can they see? It is too small to see. Where is such seeing power? Dr. Singh: still they want to sense it by some means. Srila Prabhupada: if you inject just one grain of deadly poison into someone, he immediately dies. No one can see the poison or how it acts, but the poison is acting nevertheless. In the same way, the Vedas say that because the minute particle called the soul is within the body, the whole body is working nicely. If I pinch myself, I immediately feel it because I'm conscious all over my skin. But as soon as the soul is absent, which is the case when my body dies, you can take the same skin and cut it and chop it. No one will protest. Why is this simple thing so hard to understand? Is this not detecting spirit? Dr. Singh: that is the soul. But what about God? Srila Prabhupada: first of all, let us understand the soul. The soul is a small God. If you understand the sample, then you can understand the whole. Now, here is matter. Srila Prabhupada points at a dead tree with his cane. Formerly, leaves and twigs were growing from this tree. Why are they not growing now? Can the scientists answer this question? Karandhara Dasa: they would say the chemical composition has changed. Srila Prabhupada: all right, then if they are so advanced in knowledge of chemistry, they must supply the proper chemicals to make branches and leaves grow again. Brahmananda Swami: knowledge means that one must be able to demonstrate his theory. They should be able to show in their laboratories that life is caused by a combination of chemicals. Srila Prabhupada: yes. The scientific method means first observation, then hypothesis, and then demonstration. But these scientists cannot demonstrate their hypothesis. They simply observe and then speak nonsense. Scientists say that the chemicals are the cause of life, but all the chemicals that were there when the tree was living are still present, and life energy is also there. There are thousands of microbes in the tree, and they're all living entities. No one can claim that life energy is lacking in the body of this tree. Dr. Singh: but what about the life energy of the tree itself? Srila Prabhupada. Yes, that is the difference. The living force is individual, and the particular individual living entity, which was the tree itself, has left. This must be the case, since all the chemicals that are necessary to support life are still there, yet the tree is dead. Here is another example. Suppose I'm living in an apartment, and then I leave it. I'm gone. But many other living entities remain there, ants, spiders, and so forth. It is not true that simply because I have left apartment, it can no longer accommodate life. Other living entities are still living there. It is simply that I, an individual, living being, have left. The chemicals in the tree are like the apartment. They are simply the environment for the individual living force, the soul, to act through. Thus, the scientists will never be able to produce life in the chemical laboratory. The so-called scientists say that life begins from chemicals, but the real question is, where have the chemicals come from? The chemicals come from life, and this means that life has mystic power. For example, an orange tree contains many oranges, and each orange contains chemicals, citric acid and others. So where have these chemicals come from? Obviously, they have come from the life within the tree. The scientists are missing the origin of the chemicals. They have started their investigation from the chemicals, but they cannot identify the origin of the chemicals. Chemicals come from the supreme life, God. Just as the living body of a man produces many chemicals, the supreme life, the supreme Lord, is producing all the chemicals found in the atmosphere, in the water, in humans, in animals, and in the earth. And that is called mystic power. Unless the mystic power of the Supreme Lord is accepted, there is no solution to the problem of the origin of life. Dr. Singh. The scientists will reply that they cannot believe in mystic power. Srila Prabhupada. But they must explain the origin of the chemicals. Anyone can see that an ordinary tree is producing many chemicals. They cannot deny it. But how does it produce them? Since they cannot answer this, they must accept that the living force has mystic powers. I cannot explain how my fingernail is growing out of my finger. It is beyond the power of my brain. In other words, it is growing by inconceivable potency, or achintya shakti. So if achintya shakti exists in an ordinary being, imagine how much achintya shakti God possesses. The difference between God and me is that although I have the same potencies as God, I can produce only a small quantity of chemicals, whereas He can produce enormous quantities. I can produce a little water in the form of perspiration, but God can produce the seas. Analysis of one drop of seawater gives you the qualitative analysis of the sea without any mistake. Similarly, the ordinary living being is a part and parcel of God. So by analyzing the living beings, we can begin to understand God. In God, there is great mystic potency. God's mystic potency is working swiftly, exactly like an electric machine. Machines operate by certain energy, and they are so nicely made that all the work is done simply by pushing a button. Similarly, God said, "Let there be creation," and there was creation. Considered in this way, the workings of nature are not very difficult to understand. God has such wonderful potencies that the creation on His order alone immediately takes place. Brahmananda Swami: scientists don't accept God or Achintya Shakti. Srila Prabhupada: that is their rascaldom. God exists, and His Achintya Shakti also exists. Karandhara Dasa: scientists say that life was created biochemically. Srila Prabhupada: and I say to them, why don't you create life? Your biology and chemistry are very advanced, so why don't you create life? Karandhara Dasa: they say they will create life in the future. Srila Prabhupada: when in the future? If the scientists know the creative process, why can't they create life now? If life has a biochemical origin, and if biologists and chemists are so advanced, then why can't they create life in their laboratories? When this crucial point is raised, they say, we shall do it in the future. Why in the future? That is nonsense. Trust no future, however pleasant. What is the meaning of their advancement? They're talking nonsense. Karandhara Dasa: they say that they are right on the verge of creating life. Srila Prabhupada: but that is also the future in a different way. They must accept that they still do not know the truth about the origin of life. Since they are expecting to be able to create life in the future, presently their knowledge must be imperfect. Their proposal is something like giving someone a post-dated check. Suppose I owe you $10,000 and I say, yes, I will pay you the entire sum with this post-dated check. Is that all right? If you are intelligent, you will reply, at present, give me at least $5 in cash so I can see something tangible. Similarly, the scientists cannot produce even a single blade of grass by biochemistry, yet still they claim that life is produced from matter. What is this nonsense? Is no one questioning this? We can prove that life began from life. Here is the proof. When a father begets a child, the father is living and the child is living. But where is the scientist's proof that life comes from matter? We can prove that life begins from life, and we can also prove that the original life is Krishna. But what evidence exists that a child is ever born out of a dead stone. The scientists cannot prove that life comes from matter. They're leaving that aside for the future. We're going to stop here for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. The link to this book is in the description. Check out our website shravanamdiaries.com, and we shall see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.